Welcome to this episode of the Cool Tools Show and Tell. Our special guest this week is John O'Brien. Hey, John, would you like to introduce yourself to our watchers and listeners?
Sure thing. Hi, I'm John O'Brien. I'm the founder and co-owner of Revolution Makerspace. I'll be sharing 4 cool tools that are in the makerspace.
Okay. So these are going to be large scale, not your ordinary home purchases, I suspect.
Yeah, I was a little torn about that because I know one of the guidance is that they're publicly available, but technically they are. You just have to have a pile of money.
Right. But if you are interested in banding together with a bunch of other people to have a communal space, these may be tools that you want.
Right, exactly.
So with that caveat in mind, what's one of your first choices?
Well, yeah, so the first choice I would share is this laser cutter. So this is a Thunder Laser Nova 51 130 watt laser cutter. It's one of my favorite tools because, number one, people really love it. They use it for engraving and cutting leather and wood. And then also, as the runner of a space, selfishly, this thing is very easy to maintain, right? You have to clean the lenses occasionally, but other than that, it's very low maintenance, and it's one of the highest used tools. So
right. So it's about the size of a large freezer, maybe even bigger. What would you describe the size?
All right. So for the audience, for the listeners who can't see it, golly, it's like 5 feet by 6 feet by 3 feet high.
Yeah.
You can fit, actually, it has pass through, so you could actually fit a whole sheet, apply into it if you wanted to. But typically, you can fit about half a sheet in at a time.
You mean a 4 foot by 4 foot sheet?
Yeah.
And this looks pretty powerful, so it'll certainly be capable of cutting things. Can it cut metal, like aluminum?
No, it cannot cut metal. So that's one of the most common questions that we get. I know there are certain lasers that can engrave metal, but this isn't one of them. Okay.
So you have a laser cutter you're using for a plywood, and like, how much does it cost?
Oh, gee golly. I think it's like $15,000. So
okay.
It'll only make that for, I mean, I guess if you were starting like a manufacturing business, making things that, so like we're now making signs for plants. There's another woman, like I mentioned, who's doing like laser etching into leather works.
Okay.
But no, it doesn't do metal.
So, and I know by now that there are many vendors of laser machines, including ones at the higher end like this. Why is this one superior to others, maybe in a similar price range?
So yeah, that's a fair question. So I haven't, full disclosure, this is the only large scale laser cutter I've ever used. So I don't have, personal experience with other ones. That said, in my research, there are certainly higher quality ones that are like 2 times or 4 times more expensive. And there are certainly cheaper ones. But the support that I've gotten for this one has been really great from Thunder Laser. They get back within like less than 24 hours and with copious amounts of tips, right? They're really trying to bend over backwards. And so I think that is worth a lot to me with I think it was a lifetime warranty as well, lifetime support. So for a guy like me, who, I have middling to okay skills at these things, it's really important to have that support.
And what kinds of things would you need support on?
Oh, well, so there's lots of things that can go wrong. I mean, the one that actually goes wrong with it for me is the smoke that comes off of the things that you're cutting and eventually accumulate on the laser lenses. So you have to clean the laser lenses. In addition, you might have to align the laser lenses, or you might have to replace the water, or, God forbid, one of the parts in the controller goes off, right? I'd have to replace that. So that kind of maintenance.
Okay. I know that lasers have different power ratings, and Some of the ones from China these days have had, I guess there's carbon dioxide. Is that right? One of the
Yeah, this is the CO2 issue. That's correct.
CO2, yeah. Some of them have actually kind of decreased in price down to the level of a consumer purchase. How what's the rating on this one? Just so we have an index.
Yeah, so 130 watts, and so what that means is that it can very easily cut through like quarter-inch plywood.
Okay. Maybe even a little thicker.
Yeah, I mean, I there's never been a release like stress test or whatever, but yeah, I think that on the website, it indicates you can go thicker than that. I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay. All right. So this is the Nova Thunder laser.
Yeah, Thunder Laser Nova 51 130 watt laser.
Okay. So what's the second select?
Oh, so the second one I was going to show you is this is a well, let's get over to it. Give me a second. So this is called the European 5-function machine. So it actually has 5 functions in one. So it has a table saw, a jointer, a planer, something called a shaper, which is like a giant router, and a mortiser.
Wow, wow. All in one. So is it working off the same motor or is it just all in the same cabinet?
No, it's all in the same cabinet. There's 3 motors. So there's one motor for the table saw, one motor for the jointer, planer, and mortiser, and then another motor for the shaper. But the thing about it, Mr. Kelly, that's great is like if you look at this shop, it's a relatively small shop. And so instead of having to like cart back and forth machines to the center, which is difficult, right? You just have this one machine. It has different attachments and different configurations, but it stays in one place.
So for those who are listening, it looks like a kind of a very, very large, contractors level or, cabinet makers level table saw that has extensions on the side and more than one contraption on the top. But it's not that much bigger than a big table saw.
Yeah, that's correct. So there's a couple of different features that one should be aware of. So this sliding table is really great. So there's a couple of things. It does not have like the automatic shut off that you see nowadays.
With a saw stop, you mean?
Right. Yeah, it doesn't have a saw stop, but it does have with a sliding table, you don't actually stand behind the work, right? So typically you don't have to worry much about kickback. You're not getting your hands anywhere near the blade. So I quite like that.
Right. So what he's describing is that this is kind of a European style table saw where instead of pushing a big sheet or across the table, one half of the table moves in relation to the other half, and that half holds the work. And you're pushing the sliding sled, I guess.
That's correct.
Across the blade. So it's easier, more accurate. It's almost like having one of those Festools track saws. It's almost like it's a cross between a table saw and a track saw, maybe.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So yeah, you wouldn't need a track saw with this, and it actually one can process panels. So I process 8x4 panels with this. It's not easy as an individual, so that's why I have this. Well, let me show you. I guess just quickly this little gadget here is nice.
Flip up.
You can actually put a panel on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not easy to cut a 4x8 sheet of plywood in on any saw, even a track saw if you have to. But so that's really cool. This idea of a combination for a small shop. That's really neat. So in terms of cost, if you were to buy them individually, is there a big savings or is it just space?
That's a great question. So I don't think so. Like I think maybe it's like $1,000 cheaper than buying each machine individually. That said, you'd have to it's kind of a work to try to get. So a mortiser would be a couple hundred, and then you can get a joiner planer combo. But what I found was that a lot of people who have small shops, they end up doing this anyway, where they sort of try to either bring them out back and forth, which, like I said, it was very unappealing because then large pieces of equipment members would have to move, or they end up arranging them in this kind of configuration where you have a jointer planer right next to the table saw. So I think that having one piece of equipment, even if you maybe have to like move the output codes for the wood dust collection, is actually much easier than having a bunch of different machines. But no, I don't think it's actually much cheaper. It is probably higher quality though than you would get for the same price. This is a European style machine. It's very, very rigid. It can do like high quality. Some people talk about making furniture down with like calipers that are thousands of an inch. I've never done that, but these are the kind of machines that you absolutely could if you really wanted to.
And where is who makes it, and where does it come from?
Well, so SCM is an Italian company, and I got it from an importer in the US. I originally actually reached out to SCM directly, but there was a problem with that, which is that, again, I need long-term support, and the local US manufacturer, outlet, or distributor, or whatever you have it, they don't have guys who come out. So instead, I bought it from a company called Atkins Machinery out of New Hampshire, and they provide lifetime support. So if I need to, I can call them up. I have to pay them, but at least they'll come out. But that said, one of the other reasons why I like this one, Mr. Cleese, it said like almost no problems at all. Like,
Yeah.
I'm still like learning a lot of the features. So maybe when I get into like the shaper or the mortar stir, I'll have a problem. But like, I haven't even had to change the blades. It's just been rock solid since day one.
Wow. And so this is called the Minimax.
Yeah, that was a brand I think SCM bought out many years ago. But this is the C300 Classic, and then the 300 refers to 300 millimeters, which is the width you can use in the jointer.
Okay. All right. Wow. That is pretty cool. So, so John, tell us about your next cool tool pick.
Sure. So I think I picked the LMS 309090, right? So this is a mini mill. Oh, you can't see it. Can you see it now?
I can.
So yeah, so I really like machining. And so this is a mini mill. If you've never seen a mini mill before, it's like a drill press in a enclosure. And the difference between this and a drill press is that it can cut on the sides. And then in addition, the bed weighs, or very rigid and can hold stuff very well. So this one was one I actually converted using Kit, online.
Wait, you converted from what to what?
Oh, sorry. So yeah, I bought a mini mill, the Little Machine Shop 3990, and then I eventually bought a CNC conversion kit, so you can use it to do CNC cutting of metal.
Oh, I see. So you took a manual mill and then you added the ability to do a computer-controlled CNC version of it.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I think eventually, I don't think I saved much over just buying a Tormac from the beginning, but I didn't know that's where I would end up. So here's where we are.
And so, what would you use this for? What kinds of things would you use this for, and how complicated is it to use?
So you would use this for cutting metal. So like if you wanted to make molds or small metal pieces, that's what you would use this mini mill for. And then it's actually pretty hard to use. So of the machines in the shop, it's probably the one that requires the most prior education. There's just certain techniques that you need to use for machining in order to have any good outcomes, and they require a little bit of more pre-work than the other tools, really.
Okay, so in your shop and people coming through, what do you find that people are using it for?
So one gentleman was talking about actually making so I have a CNC router, but he has a CNC router at home and he wants to build a better one that's more rigid. And so he's using something called, I think it's called Print NC, where they have like open source CNC router plans. But the catch is there's certain metal pieces that you for like the end caps, for instance, that hold the ball screws. Right. And then the guide rail. And so those pieces, though, you have to either use your own
Right,
CNC
right.
router, very difficult, or you could use a medium mill like this.
So it's pretty technical machining. It's the kind of the things that you would maybe ordinarily send out to a machine shop to mill.
Yeah, I mean, I love it because it's just I find the whole thing fascinating, and it's a whole other domain. It's a whole other set of expertise, and there's a certain amount of like logic, like geometry to it, where you're trying to like infer something from something else. So I personally really enjoy it. It's kind of my bag. But you're right. Yeah, usually the alternative would be you would send the part out to a machine shop.
Right, right. Um, and so in this case, you purchased this mill. Was it something you purchased new, or is it used, or what?
Oh yeah, I purchased the LMS 3990 new before the pandemic, and then during the pandemic, I really got into machining. I was in my garage, and after many hours of like, so when you're using a manual mill, a mini mill, you have to like turn the crank, and then you have to like do it again. And I can only take off like 5,000 of an inch at a time. So I was like, there's got to be a better thing. And then I, realized, of course, CNC stuff, and I was like, that sounds like the cat's meow. And so, this is like the second or third evolution of this because you keep on like refining things, but it works okay.
Okay. All right. So then your fourth tool selection for us.
But yeah, so the fourth one I'm a little torn about because it's probably the most fussy one. So I guess I'm a little bit split on, but I will share. So this is can you see this okay?
Yeah.
So
Right.
this is the Modix BIG-60 3D printer.
Oh, big.
Yeah, so the thing that I'm focusing on for this makerspace is equipment that folks probably couldn't get themselves, right, at home.
Right.
And so
it looks like it's in operation.
yeah, I was trying to print an example print, but this is probably also an example of why it frustrates me. So it's just very finicky, right? Like between you build it from a kit, and all the joints are these, I don't know if you can see that very well, but they're extruded aluminum with these T-nuts.
Uh-huh.
Probably fine if your floor is like flat linoleum or something, but my floor is a rough shop floor, and I feel like every time I roll around, something comes loose and I have to fight it and tighten it. In addition, it's just finicky as all get out. So like this print's not going to work, I don't think, this time, right? And I don't know exactly why. And so like I'll like take it apart and I'll adjust things and I'll tweak stuff. The support has been really good from Modix, so I can't blame them, but just the machine is very difficult to make.
And is that because the scale of it just means that things have to be more rigid, and that gets harder to do the bigger it gets?
I honestly don't know the reason why. I think that is exactly part of it. So like sometimes these prints can last for days. So, over that course of time, if one thing goes wrong, right, then the whole print can be lost or the whole print could be not worth anything. So yes, I think that the size of it leads to that. But alternately, some of the other stuff, like, so in order for this machine to make a lot of sense, I thought it would make sense to have a higher volume print head. So I started to use like a super volcano, which is this like really large, high temperature extruder. So that didn't really work very well though. It's just so finicky, and finding just the right temperature where every filament will flow for a space like this where I want people to just walk in and use stuff. It's not great. But on the other hand, when it does print something, it's like magic, because you can get this giant object that's like perfect, but it's like only 1 in 5 times maybe.
Wow. That's not. Yeah. I know I have a Prusa, your regular standard thing, which I made from a kit, which I do not recommend because it was far more. I mean, I took hours and hours and hours to assemble it. And it is also finicky. I found that I had to really pay attention to the quality of the filament. It was very sensitive to any variation in the size of the filament. And the cheaper filaments were they would start slipping and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
And that's exactly the kind of problems I have with this one, but just on a larger scale. And like changing the filament on this is non-trivial. The Titan Arrow head, for whatever reason, like every time I have to change the filament, it takes like 15 minutes, right? And then to your point, getting it dialed in with a new filament if it's a new brand or whatever, is not easy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for a space like this where I want people to just be able to walk up, do their stuff, and leave, it's just not a great fit.
Right, right. So, so tell me a little bit more about your space. Just now that we're here at the end, is this like a membership idea, or is this sort of like come in per hour training? What is it? School? What is it?
But yeah, it's a membership thing. So it's $109 a month. We're in Waltham, Massachusetts. I initially was interested in like training, actually. That's fair. And so I did have one gentleman teaching a class on woodworking, but he moved away. So right now we don't have any classes. So right now it's just $109 per month per member.
Uh-huh. And you're in where Massachusetts is this Western Massachusetts? Where's Waltham?
But yeah, the Waltham's like if you're like outside of Boston, like 20 minutes, that's Waltham.
Okay. All right. Okay. And you you must have some other tools that you didn't show in this thing. What else? What other kinds of things do you also have as part of the selection?
Yeah, sure. So there's an X-Carve. Ooh, actually, one more favorite tool I would mention. This drill press is my favorite thing. So this is the Nova DVR drill press. So the thing I love about this is it's digitally variable, so you don't have to change belts if you want to change speeds.
Yeah.
And it releases power or torque even at high or low speed, so I can use it for both wood and metal.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That's called a what?
That's a Nova Viking DVR digital drive technology. I got the 16. Now, of course, as you always regret. Just kidding. Anyway, I should have gotten the 18 with the floor stand, but it's really a great drill press. It is really a great drill press. Like in terms of drill presses, I really recommend this one.
Okay.
Yeah, we also have the X-Carve CNC. This one's a little twitchy though. And again, like it's funny. So for me, the maintenance of things is like a really big deal, right? It's like the more hours that I have to maintain something, it really bothers me. So the X-Carve has been a little problematic from that point of view. Metal bandsaw and large wood bandsaw, both of those get a fair amount of usage.
Uh-huh.
And those are relatively low maintenance, so I like that. So this is the Laguna 18-inch bandsaw. It's really good for resawing, so if you wanted to cut down. Actually, you can see some resawing wood up there.
Right. Is there kind of like a league of makerspaces where people can trade information about things like maintenance and the machines that actually require less maintenance than others?
No, I know of at least. That's a great idea.
Because where you're having kind of a high input, you have a huge variety of machines that maybe most industrial shops probably don't have. Yeah, I mean, because most people don't think about maintenance when they're buying it. They're usually other factors, price, features. Most people aren't thinking about maintenance, and so you guys maybe have a different set of criteria.
Yeah, you know, it's a good point. I mean, I end up going on to like there's a minimax user forum, and then there's a Modix user forum. So for each piece of equipment, there's kind of, but you bring up a good point. I mean, if I did give advice to someone trying to start a makerspace, the laser cutter is like, people love the laser cutter. And it's not my bag, right? So it's not what I would have anticipated. But when I was asking around, I was like, this idea, I don't know, it's kind of crazy. What do you think? And my friends were all like, oh, get a laser cutter. And I was like, what's a laser cutter, right?
Yeah. I don't know if that, I mean, it'd be interesting to see whether other makerspaces report the same thing with the number of hours of machines being used. Well, anyway, John, this is really, really great. Did you have something else you wanted to share or about a project you're working on?
So I was thinking about that, and honestly, this is the project that I'm working on.
Okay.
Like originally, it was like, you know, these kinds of machines, like I trying to make this 3D printer work, but like at this point, this is my full-time project that I'm trying to get working.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I can see just keeping those things going. And I'm sure you probably have to instruct people in terms of some basic things when they begin to.
Yeah, it was funny. So I started out being like, no training, but then like that didn't work at all. So now it's like, and as much training as you want, basically. So that ends up being another thing I'm going in.
Yeah. Just even for just safety of the machine, let alone safety of the people, there's lots to learn. Well, thank you very much. This was I appreciate you volunteering for this, and I appreciate you sharing your expertise and what you've done. And tell me the name again of the makerspace.
Sure thing. First, let me thank you, Mr. Kelly. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. And it's called Revolution Makerspace.
Revolution Makerspace, Waltham, Massachusetts. If you're nearby, check it out. We'll have some links below. And John, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
This year, our Cool Tools blog will be 20 years old, which means we've been posting something new every day for 20 years. It's only possible because of the very engaged and knowledgeable readers and listeners like yourself. You've kept this place going, and we are very grateful for you. With this idea of 20 years in mind, we decided to try an experiment this year, and I'm inviting our guests and listeners to join me on our Cool Tool Show and Tell, which is the program that you're listening to right now. So if you feel you'd make a good guest on this podcast and have 4 uncommon tools that you'd like to share with us, please sign up on our form on the website, and we'll see about inviting you. You must be comfortable talking on a video, and you need to have some tools that you can show. We record on, as you know, on Zoom. We do a YouTube version, a video version of it, as well as an audible version. Fill out the form if you're interested, and list your 4 cool tools, and we'll see if there's a good fit. The applications aren't guaranteed in any way, and we're looking at tools that are new to us and appropriate tools, and whether the times will work for you. So we're really interested in hearing from people all over the world, not just in the US, although the tools have to be available online, easily available online. And if you are a longtime listener, you kind of know what the definition of our tools are. They're very broad. They can be anything that's handy, from something in the kitchen to something you use to travel, to a workshop, to something professional that we may not know about. We're really interested in things that we don't know anything about. So this is an open invitation. We'll give it a try. If you think you make a good guest for this podcast, fill out the form. There'll be a link somewhere on our website. And we look forward to chatting with you. Thank you.